Welcome to Chapter 10 on the Basics in Biblical Hebrew. We're going to go ahead and be studying the Hebrew construct chain this lesson. So far we set the groundwork for going from the very basic elements of the Hebrew consonants, the vowels, the prepositions, definite articles on nouns, learn to recognize the masculine and feminine nouns, both singular and plural. We've gotten into the demonstrative adjectives or demonstrative pronouns. We've gotten into adjectives also, learn how to recognize the three uses of the adjective, the attributive, the predicative, and the substantive adjectives. And today we're going to go ahead and get into the build upon that into the Hebrew construct chain. This is a very important part of the Hebrew grammar. It is very frequently used. In the Hebrew, there's no word for of. Like we have in Greek, we have a construct chain also that's somewhat similar, but it uses case endings of the genitive case. Now, this grammatical relationship is created by placing two or more nouns side by side. And let's observe some of the following examples here. We have kol ha'ish. Here we have a noun, kol, the voice, or voice, and then ha'ish. And we would translate this as the voice of the man, because the absolute noun, ha'ish, has a definite article, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And we have Melech ha'arts, the king of the land. Also, we have Eved HaMelech, the servant of the king. Now, in the above examples, there's no explicit Hebrew word for of. Rather, it's implied because each set of nouns is side by side, that is, in a construct chain. So, in most instances, two different translations are possible. For example, if we go to the Kol Ha'ish, we may be translated as either the voice of the man or the man's voice. Likewise, Eved HaMelech may be translated as either the servant of the king or the king's servant. Now, while studying the construct chain in this chapter, the of translation is used throughout. So we're going to do it pretty simplistic, use it of for the purposes of really getting it down into memory and usage here. Let's go up here to the basic grammar of the Hebrew construct chain. We have two nouns here. One is construct and the other is the absolute state. Now, if we use the imagery of the chain, there are two links in the Hebrew construct chain. There's the construct link and the absolute link. This is the construct link, this is the absolute link. The first of the two nouns in the construct chain is called the construct noun, and is said to be in construct state. The second of the two nouns is called the absolute noun and is said to be in absolute state. The absolute form of a noun is also its lexical form. This is the form that you will find it in the lexicon. And it is in the of course, in this situation, it would be the masculine singular form of Melech. So we have Eved as a construct noun. This is the servant of, and then HaMelech, the king, which is the absolute noun. Now, in a construct chain, there's only one absolute noun. That's very important. And the absolute noun is always the last noun in the chain. However, multiple construct nouns may appear in the construct chain. Let's look at some examples here. And you should also know that when two nouns are in construct, no other words or particles may separate them. That's very key, very crucial. You won't have any vowels or any other particles, conjunctions, or anything like that will separate between the construct noun and the absolute noun. The chain cannot be broken. Okay, so let's get into some elements or aspects of the construct state. Construct chains are either entirely definite like saying the servant of the king, or they are entirely indefinite, a servant of the king, or of a king. There would be a servant of a king. But the construct noun would not take the definite article. The definiteness or indefiniteness of a construct chain will be determined by the definiteness or the indefiniteness of the absolute noun. That's very pivotal. You look for the absolute noun to determine whether the chain is going to be definite or indefinite. Either the absolute noun will have the definite article or it won't. Therefore, a construct chain is definite if the absolute noun is definite, and indefinite if the absolute noun is indefinite. Now, if the absolute noun is definite, so are all the construct nouns linked to it. If the absolute noun is indefinite, same thing. All the construct nouns linked to it are indefinite. So when we're looking here at this, some examples here of indefinite, we have kol-ish. This would be, there's no definite article on ish here. This is the absolute noun. This is the construct noun kol, the absolute noun ish. There's no definite article on ish, so the construct noun is going to be indefinite as well. So it would be a voice of a man, kol ish. Melech would be Melech Eretz. It'd be the king, a king of a land. Eved, Melech, a servant of a king. Now, using the same nouns, notice how the following construct chains are entirely definite because the absolute nouns are definite. We have kol ha-ish. You have the definite article, the hay, and the comments here, because comments is here, remember, because the rejection of the dagesh forte in the aleph, so it lengthens the patak to a comments. That's called compensatory lengthening. We have Melech Haaretz. This is the king of the land. You see the definite article on the absolute noun Eretz, and we have Eved HaMelech, the definite article on Melech here. So even though the construct nouns lack the definite article, they are considered to be definite because the absolute nouns are definite. Remember that a noun is considered to be definite under three circumstances. This is important. If it has a definite article, as in Hamalcha, the queen, or if it has a pronominal suffix, as in Suso, and this is the third masculine singular pronominal suffix, or if it has a proper noun, or it's a proper noun such as Samuel or David or Solomon, they are understood to be definite. Now note how the following construct chains are definite. In the first two examples, the construct chain is definite because the absolute noun is a proper noun. In the last two examples, the construct chain is definite because the absolute noun has a pronominal suffix. Okay, we have Avi, Avraham. Avraham is the absolute noun, so it is going to be understood to be definite, and thus the construct noun, Avi, is going to be definite. The father of Abraham. Okay, we don't need to translate it as the father of the Abraham, just the father of Abraham. Now we have Eved Shmuel, and we would translate this into English as the servant of Samuel. Not the servant of the Samuel, but the servant of Samuel. Because Samuel and Abraham are proper nouns. Thus, they're understood to be definite here. That's why you get the definite article transfers to the construct noun. Next, we have Beit Malki. Beit Malki. Here we have, in Malki, we have Melech, which is the king, in absolute form with a pronominal, first common singular pronominal suffix, e. Here, a yod here. So we have Beit Malki, so this is assumed as definite, and thus the definite article goes on the construct noun bait. The house of my king is how we would translate that. Also in Sefer Avihu, Sefer Avihu, we would have Avihu is a absolute noun with the third masculine singular pronominal suffix hu here. So we would translate this as the book of his father. The book of his father. Let's go ahead over into multiple construct nouns. We have shared earlier that you have one absolute noun, but you can have multiple construct nouns in the chain. So it's already been explained that multiple construct nouns may appear in a given construct chain, but there's only one absolute noun for each construct chain. In other words, a train may have many cars, but only one caboose. So in instances where the multiple construct nouns appear, each construct noun is translated with the keyword of, and they all depend on the absolute noun of definiteness. In the following example, the construct chains contain more than one noun in the construct state. Let's look at some examples here. Alright, we have Eved Achi Hamelech. Here we have the servant of the brother of the king. And all these are these two constructs here, Eved and Achi, are definite because the absolute noun Melech has a definite article in here, Hamelech. We have Eved Beit Hamelech, the servant of the house of the king. Same thing, the servant of the house of the king are definite because Hamelech has a definite article in there. We have Divrei Melech Haaretz. We would translate, since you have the land has the definite article on here. This is the absolute noun. Melech is construct and Divrei is construct. We would translate this as the words of the king of the land. Words of the king of the land here. So it'd be the words of the king of the land. Alright, let's go down here to the next one here. We have Kal Mishpachat Beit Avi Imo. Okay, Kal is being used here. This is a Chametz Hatuf here. This is a reduction from a Holam to a Chametz Hatuf because it is in construct with Mishpachat. So basically, I mean, Kol is a construct, Mishpachat is a construct, Beit is a construct, Avi is a construct, and Imo basically is the absolute noun with a pronominal suffix. So it is assumed to be definite. So even though you don't see a definite article, that's the number 2 part of the 3 rule of nouns that are assumed to have definite articles. And so we would translate all of the family of the house of the father of his mother. And this is basically 1, 2, 3, 4 construct nouns and particles in relationship to this absolute noun. So it becomes definite. Everything is definite, going basically from mishpat, because imo is an absolute noun with the a pronominal suffix on it here. Now, when we have construct chains linked with makaf, the nouns of a construct chain are sometimes joined together here. And you see some examples here, Ben David, or Ben David here. Normally, Ben's son is Bain with a Sarai normally, but when it is in construct, it reduces down to a seglet or a segol up under the bait here. Because whenever a makaf is joined one word to another, the accent shifts from the first word down to the second word. Same thing with Kal Ha'am. Kal Ha'am. This is not Kol, but Kal, because the holum that would normally be here is reduced down to a kametz hatuf, which is you have a changeable long. Holum is a changeable long vowel, reduces O vowel, which reduces down to a short O of the kametz hatuf. And you see that happen a lot in the constructs here. So basically, again, that's because the makaf is joined together, and all of the people is how we would translate that. Now let's go ahead and go into the construct change with adjectives, and we'll get into this, and which is we're just kind of building upon the construct idea. Attributive adjectives, we've already learned that nouns of a construct chain cannot be separated by other words. For this reason, when an adjective modifies either the construct or absolute noun, it must follow the entire chain. Like any attributive adjective, it must agree with the noun that it modifies in gender, number, and definiteness. And so in the following examples, davar, we're going to use it as an example here, is the construct form of davar with the kametz. And melech is both construct and absolute form of this noun. So we're going to go ahead and look at some examples here. Alright, notice that davar has kametz under its two consonants right here. That's the normal lexical form here. When you see davar with a shava and a patak, then what happens here, there's been a vowel reduction here. We'll get into those vowel reductions in just a few moments here. We would translate this as davar hamalacha hatov. Now we look at the adjective hatov here. And we look and say, what gender is this? This is masculine gender, and it's singular, and it has a definite article here on it, okay? Well, it's masculine and singular. Which of these two nouns is masculine and singular? Well, hamalka is not masculine. That's feminine because the kametz hey tells us that it's feminine. So it must be davar. So we would say the good word of the queen. The good word of the queen. Hatov is agreeing with davar, the construct noun here. And that's how we would translate that. Now we can also do this. We could say go to davar hamalka hatova, and we look at the adjective hatova and see that it is feminine singular, so it is agreeing with hamalka, the queen. So this would be the word of the good queen. That's how we would translate that, because hatova is agreeing with hamalka in gender and number and indefiniteness here too. Alright, let's go to melech haaretz hatov. King, and hatov is the adjective. That's what you want to look for. You want to look for the adjective and see, does it agree in gender? What noun it agrees with in gender here? Does it agree with melech? Yeah, melech's masculine and tov is masculine. Does it agree with haaretz? No, haaretz is feminine. So we would translate this in English as the good king of the land. And so that's the key, is to look at the gender and then look at the number, whether it's singular or plural. All right, we have melech haaretz hatova. Well, king is masculine, but the adjective here is feminine, hatova. The kametz hey ending tells us that the adjective is feminine singular, and it must agree with haaretz, which is feminine singular. So we would translate this as the king of the good land. The king of the good land. Now in the following construct chains, the adjective may modify either the construct or the absolute noun. And in there are sometimes there's ambiguous constructions like these, and context must be your guide. Note that divrei is the construct form of devarim, and eved, which is a singular noun, is both construct and absolute. That's what you're going to learn, that construct nouns in their singular form are both absolute and construct. But we'll get into a little bit later on. Alright, let's go ahead and look at these examples. We have Devar, Hamelech, Hatov. Now the adjective here is agreeing with Devar, because Devar is masculine and it's singular, just like Tov is masculine and singular, and Hamelech is masculine and singular. So it could go both ways. You could translate it as the good word of the king, or good, or you could go ahead and say the word of the good king. The word of the good king. So either way, it would be correct in here, because both the construct and the absolute noun are both singular and masculine, as well as the adjective. Also, let's go. We have divrei on the next one. Hamelachim hatovim. All right, what we want to do is look at the adjective here. The adjective hatovim is masculine, plural, because of the im. The Hirik Yod Mem Sufit here tells us it's masculine, plural. And we see that the nouns, okay, Hamelachim, this is masculine, plural, and divrei is masculine, plural construct. So it's the same. So it could go either way. So we could say the good words of the kings, or we could say the words of the good kings. Either way, it would be correct, because we could be the words of the good kings. Here would be the latter one. Excuse me. Secondly, we have Eved, Hanavi, Hara. The Eved basically is masculine singular. Hara, the adjective, is masculine singular. And Hanavi is masculine singular. So we could say either the evil servant of the prophet, or the servant of the evil prophet. Hara could go with Hanavi or with Eved. All right, we're going to go ahead and go on to demonstrative adjectives and build upon this a little further. Just like attributive adjectives, demonstrative adjectives must follow the construct chain. The following examples illustrate this point. Note that Eshet is the construct form of Isha, which is woman or wife, and we're going to see how it's used here. We got Eshet, Ha'ish, Hazeh. Alright, we have here, what we want to do is look for the demonstrative adjective. Hazeh agrees with Ha'ish in gender and in number. They're both singular, masculine singular. So Eshet, we would translate this as the wife of this man. Remember, the comes off of the absolute noun, Ha'ish. Ish has a definite article, ha, here. So it would be the wife of this man. It's more specific than the man. And we have Hazeh, which agrees with Ha'ish in gender and number and in definiteness. Eshet, Ha'ish, Hatov, Hazeh. We have the construct noun of the wife of this good man. The wife of this good man. And so basically you see how we have the demonstrative adjective after the attributive adjective here. The attributive adjective always comes after the noun. Then if there is a demonstrative adjective, it comes after the attributive adjective here. So Hatov, and the demonstrative adjective agrees with Hatov and Ha'ish. We have Divrei, Hanavi, Ha'ele. Ha'ele basically is agreeing with the Hanavi in gender and in number and in definiteness. So we would translate this as, sorry about that. It doesn't agree with Hanavi. It agrees with Divrei because Ela is plural. It's a plural masculine demonstrative adjective here. So it would go with Divrei, and we would translate this as these words of the prophet. These words of the prophet. Now, if we have Divrei Hanavi Hazeh, then the Hazeh agrees with Hanavi in gender and in number here. You notice how Divrei is plural, so this cannot go with Divrei. This has to go with Navi here. And this would basically be, we would translate this as the words of this prophet. The words of this prophet. Again, construct noun is getting the definiteness from the definite article on the absolute noun of Navi. Next we have Divrei Hanavi Hatov Hazeh. Again, we have a construct noun, an absolute noun, an attributive adjective, and a demonstrative adjective here. And so Hazeh is masculine singular. Agree. It also goes along with Hato, which is the attributive adjective. It agrees with the Navi, the prophet. So we would say the words of this good prophet. The words of this good prophet is what we would say. Because Zeh is masculine singular, it's not masculine plural, and Divrei is masculine plural construct, so it doesn't agree with it, doesn't go with it. It goes with Hanavi. Alright, let's head on down here and do a few more examples here. We have Davar Hanavi Hazeh. Again, there can be ambiguity. It can go either way sometimes in here. So we see that Hazeh is masculine singular, a demonstrative adjective. It can both agree with Hanavi and with Davar here. So we could translate it this way. We could translate it as the word of this prophet, or this word of the prophet. Either way would be correct based on this construction here. We have Divrei Hanavi Ha'ela. Both the Hanaviim and Divrei are both masculine plural. And so it could go either way. It could go with Ha'el, it could go with Divrei, these words of the prophets, or the words of these prophets. Either way, the demonstrative adjective Ha'el could go with either one. Alright, we got adjectives in the construct state. You've already learned that an adjective may be used as a noun, such as a substantive adjective can appear just like a noun in the construct state. So here's some following examples that illustrate this point. We have Yafat Mar'eh. Yafat is the feminine singular construct of Yafeh. And this, we would translate this as beautiful of appearance. We have Hacham, Lev, and Hacham is the masculine singular construct of Hacham. And we would translate this as wise of heart. And you see this valve reduction. We're going to get into that valve reduction in our next lesson, which you'll see how to recognize these construct nouns through valve reductions as well. So the third, we have Kadosh, Kadosh Yisrael. Kadosh, with this shawap and the kof, is the masculine singular construct of Kadosh, or Kadosh here. And we would translate this as the Holy One of Israel. So you can see there's a valve reduction from a comets to a shavah here, and That's the one way as a dead ringer to realize that that is a construct noun here. So again, we'll get into that in our next lesson here. Now let's go ahead and finish up with the construct nouns with inseparable prepositions. Although a construct noun cannot take a definite article, a construct noun may appear with one of the inseparable prepositions, that of be, le, and ka. An inseparable preposition is that it's attached to the noun. As in Bevet David, meaning in the house of David. In this example, the construct noun beit has the prefix preposition be. The entire chain is definite because the absolute noun is a proper noun. David is a proper noun. Now, we also need to note the loss of the dagesh lene in the second bet of bevet, because the begakifat consonant is now preceded by a vocal shava here. Got the vocal shava here in the inseparable preposition beit. So what happens is the dagesh lene that was normally in that beit for bait drops out, and so it's bevet, bevet David, bevet David is how we would pronunciate that. And so prepositions, inseparable prepositions, can be attached to the construct nouns, and just be aware of the if there is a begakifat letter that normally would have a dagesh lene, that it will drop out because of the vocal shava that's in the inseparable preposition. All right, we'll finish for that today on this lesson here, and come back to you and finish up Hebrew construct nouns on the next lesson. All right, shalom.